Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So Saturday night, 10th of January. So it's a culmination of our 7 days of all-day group practice. And most people in the room have been here this week, and some people have been able to plug in bits and pieces, and some people may be just coming this evening. And it's great that people are using the opportunity, however much time we have. Not easy, all-day group practice. Some people find it easier than others. I don't find it so easy. So my body it rebels. So, but that's okay. It's a good teaching tool. Whatever we're experiencing that's we're right at the face of experience. Goes without saying. And we're developing the tools to experience life and not suffer. So every experience we have is our teacher. Every experience we have is an opportunity to develop and to let go. So whether it's the most sublime, rapturous, blissful experience, or whether it's just kind of pleasant, or whether it's in the neutral zone, or whether it's unpleasant, or whether it's a disaster, at all times we have the opportunity. And we keep hearing this over and over again. So having a week of group practice gives us, it was the start of this 3-month retreat. We know that. Many of our communities, I can't speak for all of them, but our communities that have these winter retreats typically begin with all-day group practice. And so it's a very effective way of transitioning. It might not seem like a transition to go from more regular routine straight into all day, but what it does, at least in my own experience, is it kind of forces us to stop. Kind of just, no, sit down. I know once in a winter retreat, we weren't all quite ready because of a big project, hadn't quite finished, and we sort of slid into the winter retreat. It was necessary, but it was a sort of nebulous, gray. People weren't quite in retreat, quite not in retreat. But and at this point, I also want to just express my appreciation for everybody's practice and all the right effort, wholesome efforts that have been going on. Of course, this happens every day here, in some way, shape, or form. But here again, in this special week of all-day group practice, the people really applying themselves. I felt, and a lot of people have been sick. In the members of our lay support team, members of the Monastery community. Many people have been experiencing sickness, and yet doing what they can, and presumably working with that sickness. That is their tool. Right there, that's there at the face of experience is sickness. beginning whenever this session ends tonight, and it won't be late, several members of the monastic community begin their solitary retreats. So each and every member of the monastic community gets a period of solitude, so either 2, 3, or 4 weeks, depending on seniority. Bhikkhus in Siladhara get 4 weeks, novices 3, anagarks get 2. And so, starting after this, they disappear off into the forest, and all they need to come to is the bare minimum, and space and time. So it's a big shift from all-day group practice to all-day, day is mine. So the most junior members of the community are expected to come to the meal every day, the main meal. And they need to come, when we're in retreat, we need to come to the recitation of the monastic rule on the full moon and new moons. That's immovable. That's not an option unless you're gravely ill, very sick. So lots of space. Wow. And it's very easy for us. I can only speak for myself, and also having spoken to many people, but obviously this is not everyone's experience. But especially in the first time that we get a solitary retreat, or maybe every year, it's very easy to kind of be thinking often in idealistic terms, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to maybe strive and do certain things. I'm not going to do this, or I'm going to do this, and that's quite normal for some of us to do that, to think that way, and it can be very useful. I'm not making fun of it. If we use that aspect of thinking skillfully, and then follow through with it, more importantly, follow through with it skillfully, then we can use that time. Maybe we do. Maybe we make a determination to do something. Maybe we want to be working on a certain aspect, studying a certain aspect of the Dhamma. So, for instance, this morning we listened to a Dhamma talk that was just given a few days ago at Abhayagiri Monastery in California, our sister monastery there, and they're like us. They're in winter retreat, and so like some of our communities, not all, they've chosen a theme this year for their retreat, using the Satipatthana, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, as a theme for reflection during these 3 months. Sometimes, usually every year, I choose my own theme during my solitary retreat. Or I think I should probably say that a theme chooses me. I don't think about it beforehand, but when I get into my solitary retreat, I usually am listening to quite a lot of Dhamma online, and I find that I just end up gravitating towards a particular Dhamma theme. And so the reason I'm sharing this is that, it's not necessarily suggesting that people do that, but just planting seeds, is that to use our time to explore especially the basic themes. Those basic themes, when you unpack them, when you unpack the Four Noble Truths, like the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, when you unpack the mindfulness of breathing, when you really look at the breadth and depth of these teachings, the Satipatthana, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, these are the foundational teachings which they're called foundational because they hold us up. they hold up our practice. If we're skimming across the top and getting, it's very easy to get quite excited or get drawn and to things, and it doesn't. I'm not saying that we should ignore the other aspects. Absolutely not. We should familiarize ourselves with that, but don't neglect the foundation. It's like if we use the analogy of a building, of course this building is sitting on the ground and it's solid. It's not built like out of a foundation that's really going anywhere soon. But we need to, when we have a building, we need to pay attention to the foundation. If we're always just painting the outside and painting the living room and redoing the bathroom and redoing the kitchen, and we're not paying any attention to what's below the floor, and then you might end up with rot, what's it called, dry rot, or you get problems, and then you've got things falling down, your house falls down, termites. You have a great looking kitchen, but your kitchen's now in the basement. Didn't take care of the foundation. So these foundational teachings, to really not just to refamiliarize ourselves with them, or if it's new to us, familiarize ourselves, but to use them. They're there to be used. These are our tools. I know I keep using that word, like many people. It's a useful word. These are the tools that will bring us peace, lead us to peace. And if we get stuck in too narrow a practice, then we really missing out on opportunities. It's like I think it was not long ago I was reflecting on the Eightfold Path. It's 8 folds. There's 8 aspects, and they break down even further. It's very the word I use, it's holistic. And if we just get focused just on just tranquility meditation or samadhi and tranquility, and not use the mind when it's pliable, to use the mind when it's malleable. These are words that often come up in the English translations of the suttas. Is it when the mind becomes malleable and wieldy, you can direct it. You can at will. You can direct the mind to be contemplating Dhamma, contemplating experience through the lenses of Dhamma, through the lenses of these various. The Theravada is very famous. Theravada Buddhism, very famous for all its lists. But if we use those, if we choose a list to really use as our frame, like in the 4 foundations of mindfulness, one of the other very useful translations, in my opinion, is that frames of reference. The Ajahn Ahimsako used frames of reference. It's like a frame. How we it's our reference point for experience. Then it gives our mind something manageable to be able to look at our situation. Not to hyper-analyze or over-analyze, but to be able to view. Is there suffering or is there no suffering? Because that's, as the Buddha famously said, I teach 2 things, suffering and the end of suffering. Now, of course, he taught many other things. He used many words from what we're handed down. But I do emphasize in my own practice, and I emphasize to others, to just keep it simple. And going into solitary retreat, I would suggest that we use our time skillfully, but I would lean towards simplicity. Life is very complicated, can be, and this is one of the beauties I find of these winter retreats, is that it's a simplification of our routines. We're not engaged in outside teaching engagements. We minimize travel. We cut down on the work scene hugely. We just have a chore when we're not in solitary retreat. When we're in solitary retreat, we don't even have a chore. Just look after our own dwelling, look after our own requisites, look after our precepts, and look after our Dhamma practice. So look after our mindfulness. So that's a simplification. This lifestyle, this way of living in the monastery, living in renunciant precepts, is a great simplification. Living on 5 precepts is a simplification. Makes life is much simpler when we're not killing things, stealing things, cheating on people, lying, using harsh speech, getting drunk or stoned. Life is simpler. 8 precepts, more simplification. 10 precepts, more simplification. And the Sila Dhara and Bhikkhu precepts, more simplification. And that simplification, if we use it, once again, this is a great tool. Also, there's a lot of things obviously that we can't do with the renunciant precepts. And that's a great way to see, to more easily see desire. And when we see desire, we have the option to either let go of desire or to follow desire. And following desire is even fulfilling all of our desires. We will not. This is not the path to peace. It's the path to temporary satisfaction, gratification, really, not even satisfaction. And we have these habits of doing that. It's what the world teaches us. And that doesn't, our sense desire doesn't just drop away when we pick up spiritual practice. We know that. It's a long path. We are sense beings. We're made of senses. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and an intellect of the mind. And all 6 of them have things that they want to feel good, in order to feel good. And practice like this, to practice Buddha Dhamma, to use the sense. We're not trying to get rid of the senses, we know that. We're not trying to rid ourselves of sense impingement, but we're understanding how to receive sense data, sense contact, and not suffer. So then we're free. Then we're free. We can, whatever we see, we're free. We can see that. We can have a feeling tone around it. It can be either pleasurable or unpleasant, or it can be somewhere in the neutral zone. We can see something, and so there's an effect, but we can develop the heart and mind that don't suffer. Same with the ear, nose, tongue, body, and intellect. Then we're free. We're free to go about our life, to live our life, and not have to just continually avoid things. Now, avoidance is or can be a skillful tool. It's not that we should never avoid things. No, there are times we should avoid things, especially things that are dangerous, which is, of course, the situation. But maybe things that do draw us in unskillful ways. That until we've really realized the path, we need to be attentive. We need to be the guardians of our mind and heart. But ultimately, the goal is that those guardians once we, if we've realized the path, if we've really realized the path, and then there's this freedom that, whatever we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, think, it won't stick. There's no sticking. We don't give it that fuel, that upadana that's mentioned over and over again in the teachings, that clinging. We see something, there's a feeling tone, there might even be some sort of spark of movement to either grab it or push it away, but if we don't feed that spark, that tanha, if we don't feed it, the spark goes out. A spark without fuel, it dies very quickly. And that's our new habit. So keeping the teachings, or our practice simple, using these foundations, taking the time when we're in retreat to apply ourselves to learning things like chanting. Chanting can be very, very, very supportive to our silent meditation. The mindfulness that we need to apply to be especially learning chanting, memorizing chanting, or reciting chanting that we already know. It's collecting the mind. There's vibration, there's memory. And then if we're chanting the Pali, if we're starting to pick up if we're starting to understand the Pali a little bit more, even just a few words, that's why I find that the English chanting, whether it's Pali and English line by line, or whether it's the English chant in its entirety, I find knowing the meaning. Obviously, this is crucial. But even if we don't know the meaning, chanting the Pali chanting, by memory, putting in effort, it's a great support for our steadying the mind when we do either sit down for sitting meditation or do walking meditation. Doing walking meditation and learning chanting, very, very often done. Now, obviously, you don't want to do that when you're near other people, so that's why when we're in solitary retreat, most of us will be dwelling up in the forest. And if you're within shouting distance of another kuti, it's good to not belt it out too loudly. Sort of be sensitive. And like Lampopa Sana was mentioning in his Dhamma reflection that we listened to this morning, he was talking about sati sampajanya, situational awareness. And your situational awareness is, I'm in Ganda Kuti, and Kusala Kuti is not all that far away, and the wind is blowing towards that Kuti, and if I chant loudly, my dear neighbor is going to hear me chanting. And so that's maybe this is not the right time to do my chanting outdoors. I remember years ago in California at the monastery, and I lived quite far up the mountain, and there was a kuti really pretty close to the bottom, and but there wasn't much in between, and sound rises. Typically, sound goes up. And one of the monks was learning the Patimokkha. This is the recitation of the monastic rule, the Bhikkhu 227 precepts, and he has a very loud voice, but I was actually very happy because he was learning something so wholesome. But I know one or two of the other monks who lived up the mountain, they weren't so happy, and for whatever reason. And fair enough, it could have been quite annoying, but the person was really, really belting it out. So, yeah. I think just before we close, I think just want to touch a little bit more on that situational awareness is sati sampajanya. I do like that translation very much. Often it's mindfulness and clear comprehension. That's one of the most well-known. They all work. But that's, okay, what's the situation right now? And so to frame that, or to frame, for instance, our retreat period, so for those who are entering their solitary retreat, their situation is changing. So they'll be able to, so when we were practicing together here for the last 7 days, gathering together at 5 a.m, practicing together, walking, sitting, and chanting, things like that. So the situational awareness is going to be applied in a certain way. So we frame, this is about cooperation. This is about, kind of rowing together, chanting together, coming into the hall, within a reasonable time frame. Being on time, not wandering in late, not doing things like that. So that's that communal. That was the situation. It was communal practice. And that has a certain tone to it, and each of us will feel that tone slightly differently. So we needed to be mindful in certain ways that when we're on solitary retreat, we don't need to be mindful about. So we don't need to be mindful if we want to do a deep breathing or something. Like that was one of the examples used in the Dhamma talk this morning. Don't do that when we're in the hall like this. We don't do sort of loud breathing exercises, even though they might be good for our practice, but it's in the situation, so we're using mindfulness in the situation as, oh no, this is not appropriate. This could affect other people's meditation. So the people going on a solitary retreat, your situation is changing. We can, when we're on solitary retreat, we can completely turn our hours upside down. We can decide to practice all night and sleep during the day. We can break things up, in terms of our especially our sleep patterns. We can, of course, eating, that's very defined because of our monastic tradition. But we can do all the meditation we want. If we want to just keep sitting, or we want to just keep walking, or we want to split things up, we can do all of these things more freely according to our situation. For those of us who are not going on retreat, solitary retreat, our situation is, the schedule changes tomorrow. Well, tomorrow is just a sort of morning and evening puja day. And then on Tuesday we start the new half-day group practice. And, maybe we're covering some chores that other people were doing. We're adjusting, adapting, supporting those who are on retreat. So these are very practical applications of situational awareness. How much effort we put in, how much we're striving, and trying to always keep the middle way in practice. And the middle way is a changing. It's not a fixed point on the compass. Middle way changes accordingly to our situation, our energetic situation, psychological, emotional, all of it. So, whatever situation we're finding ourselves, to use that frame to apply ourselves appropriately. So I do wish all the people, going into solitary retreat, wish you all well for the time. But also I'd like to take this opportunity to wish the entire community well. I'm scheduled to leave here in 8 hours. I've got a flight in 12 hours to go to Thailand. I think everybody's aware, or most people are aware. I'm using a great portion of my solitary retreat to go to Thailand to join in on the gathering at Ajahn Chah's Monastery, Wat Nong Papong. And I'll be staying at Wat Pananachat for those days. So it's the annual gathering commemorating Luang Por Chah's death on the 16th of January. That's the date, but there's several days of practice that takes place there. many thousands of people gathering, many thousands, and I'm sure many of you have been there for this. And talk about a different situational awareness. When you got sometimes just maybe sometimes up. I've been told even sometimes up to 6, 8, 10,000 lay people camping out in the monastery, just all in a row, underneath, either in a tiny little tent or underneath an umbrella with a mosquito net or something. Umpteen free kitchens set up, serving food from early in the morning until late in the evening. They relaxed the 8 precepts during that period. On the final day, the circumambulation of the stupa. It's this in our field is a scale model of that. And on the 16th, there's a circumambulation. Sometimes 10,000 people, lay people, 1,000 monks, hundreds of mechis and nuns, and everybody getting along. And so that's a very different situation. Like if you're looking for solitude, you don't go to that. But it's about letting go. You let go, to cooperate, to let go, make space, let go. Don't be worried that because I need someplace to sleep where I'm alone. Well, no, it's not going to happen. Even when I've stayed there for another gathering, I think we were five of us in a kuti. You just cooperate. So that's letting go. That's Dhamma practice. That's situational awareness. That's you've got a different opportunity. So anyway, I'm going to this. At least I'm supposed to, and I've got a ticket. And so when I go, I'm going as a representative of this community. And so, in particular, for all of the Chithurst community, monastic and lay community, and also extended, I go with you all. When I bow to the elders, when I get those opportunities to pay respects to great elders, Lumpur Liam, all these different people, I'm bowing with you in mind. And sometimes I even say that to the elder. I'll say, I'm bowing, I'm here representing Chithurst Monastery, I'm bowing to you, but I'm bowing for all of us. And as I said earlier today, hopefully whatever uplift, whatever benefits that I get in my own practice and in my own, any uplift that I receive by going and doing this, I hope that I'm able to come back and share that with all of you, just in whatever way, shape, or form. On a practical note, and I said it to the monastic community at the meal, but on a practical note, while I'm away, Ajahn Kachana is leading the community, and he's done this several times before. He's very skilled at it, and so he's your reference point. Of course, the lay support team has Ten Chagadamo as your first port of call. That's your liaison. But for the monastic community, you're Ajahn Kachana, and he knows how to get in touch with me, and so as do I think all of you. And so please support him. It's not an easy role, and so even temporarily. And so please support him so that he can effectively support all of us. So. Okay, I think that's enough. So.
us chant the verses on the highest blessings. Thus have I heard that the Blessed One was staying at Savatthi, residing at the Chithurst Grove, in Anathapindika's park. Then in the dark of the night, a radiant Deva illuminated all Chithurst Grove. She bowed down low before the Blessed One. Then standing to one side, she said, Devas are concerned for happiness and ever long for peace. The same is true for humankind. Thine are the highest blessings, avoiding those of foolish ways, associating with the wise, and honoring those worthy of honor. These are the highest blessings, living in places of suitable kinds, with the fruits of past good deeds, and guided by the rightful way. These are the highest blessings, accomplished in learning and craftsman skills, with discipline highly trained, and speech that is true and pleasant to hear. These are the highest blessings, providing for mother and father's support, and cherishing family, and ways of work that harm no being. These are the highest blessings, generosity and a righteous life, offering help to relatives and kin, and acting in ways that leave no blame. These are the highest blessings, steadfast in restraint, and shunning evil ways, avoiding intoxicants that dull the mind, and heedfulness in all things that arise. These are the highest blessings, respectfulness and being of humble ways, contentment and gratitude, and hearing the Dhamma frequently taught. Highest blessings, patience and willingness to accept one's faults, seeing venerated seekers of the truth, and sharing often the words of Dhamma. These are the highest blessings, ardent, committed to the holy life, seeing for oneself the noble truths, and the realization of Nibbana. These are the highest blessings, although in contact with the world, unshaken the mind remains, beyond all sorrow, spotless, secure. These are the highest blessings. They who live by following this path know victory wherever they go, and every place for them is safe. These are the highest blessings. So we'll do the closing homage in English, which is on the bottom of page 29.